Welcome to Sales Bytes by Journey, where we talk about everything you need to know to be a killer at sales. I'm your host, Will Jenkins. Let's get it. Hello. Welcome to Sales Bytes by Journey. My name is Will Jenkins, your host. And today we have Ben Bar-Lev, National Sales Rep at Echo. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Will.
Yes, man. It was a pleasure to meet you on LinkedIn. I think it's been maybe a year or so, and I've had the pleasure of seeing your content for quite some time. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man. You know, on LinkedIn, there's a community of logisticians, and it's a small circle, and you see a lot of doers, and that's how I found you. You are a doer, and I like surrounding myself with people that are moving, and Journey is just part of the movement, my friend.
Well, we appreciate the support. It's always fun to jam with like-minded people that are out there building and making moves. So before we get going, we always like to do a fun fact. Feel free to share what you got.
So I had a couple, but the first fun fact is that my wife and I rescued a three-legged pit bull in COVID. So when I bring him around, it takes people a second and they're like, oh, he doesn't have a back left leg. Wow. That's 100% true. And another fun fact too, for one, is every Friday I have family dinner and I try to have a client or a coworker join.
That's awesome. I love that, man.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff. What's your dog's name?
Bowie, after David Bowie. My wife's a big musician. She doesn't play, but she listens to everything.
Nice.
We have a lot of vinyl in the house.
Good stuff, man. So before we dive in, would love a quick 10,000 foot overview of your career in freight, and then we'll start talking about some sales bites.
For sure, man. And, you know, before this, I listened to your career and you starting at Cutco and finding success. I think I have some Cutco knives. They're phenomenal.
Nice.
It's an incredible gift for a client, by the way, when you do custom.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't like you. I didn't find success early in life. I've had over 24 jobs. Didn't really have the right habits. Didn't really have the right attitude. The right team of mentors, I'd like to add, or just people to believe in me. And so, unlike you, I found logistics in desperation. I was 23. We reached out. I was living with my parents at the time, and we reached out to everyone we knew. And one family friend said, "Hey, you could work in logistics." I didn't even know what a freight elevator was, and I started at a small brokerage that got acquired by Echo. And so I have experience in, you know, the small brokerage, how to compete with the big guys amongst them, and then on the bigger side of how to make sure you treat your clients as if you're a micro brokerage, right? And in terms of specializations in freight, I just really enjoy logistics because no matter the size of account, there's a lot of similar issues. And I think that compared to finance, freight's a little bit easier, but overall, I'm just like you, very big on mentorship, very big on a team environment, but most importantly, very big on surrounding myself with people that are positive. And you'll hear me say are can-doers.
Yeah.
That's really what builds me up.
I love it, man. 11-year freight veteran, right?
Yes, sir. 11 years next month on the 13th of August.
Man, let's go. And have all of those years been in sales?
Yeah, they've all been with one company too.
Legend.
Almost a third of my life.
Absolute legend. Well, I know you're going to have some great tidbits here for our audience. So let's start with how to create a team selling approach. I think this is really unique if you want to bring in comprehensive solutions for shippers you're working with. So what do you got for us on that topic?
You know, team selling, especially I mentioned working at a small, brokerage, asset, whatever it is. But when you're a smaller company, you have a different strategy than somebody that's a larger company. And for me, it all starts, like team selling starts with attitude. I was watching on Instagram, this coach, Frank Martin, who used to coach South Carolina basketball. I think now he's in Massachusetts. This kid asked him, when you're teaching defense, what comes first, technique or attitude? What do you teach first? And he said, listen, attitude will always come first. As long as you have a group of guys that believe and they believe in what you're going to do and they are on board, you can teach them technique, right? It all starts with mindset. And I think I'm going to break this down into external, internal, and then the team selling approach. So when you're working internally, doesn't matter if you're big or small. If you don't know something, what do? You go and find somebody that does. They become your SME, your subject matter expert, right? They become part of your team. You need to continuously find people that are good at stuff that you're not good at, right? Because just because they're another salesman in your team or an operator or an accountant, whatever, if they work with you, they're part of the team. That's the mindset that you have to have. You as a sales rep, in my case, my job isn't just sales. It's to get the sale, to land the sale. Okay, I have the sale. People don't talk about accounting when you have credit holds, legal when you need contracts. Every single person in your company is part of the team, whether they're called up or not, okay? And your job as a sales rep is not to know the answer to every question, but you need to know where the answer is. That's the key. Again, your job's not to know the answer to every question, but who does know that answer? Bring them in. You are not a representation of the company, or rather the company isn't a representation of one employee. You have some beliefs, but when you assemble a team, now when I show up to accounts, I'm always with 4 people at least. Whatever it is, whatever account, if it's intermodal, if it's legal, if it's insurance, if it's cross-border, you're bringing in people because what I'm trying to show them is, hey, it's not just me that you're going to work with. You're working with a team here. Because no matter how good I think I am, if I'm out of the picture and the service changes, am I really representing the company in a justified manner, right? And so you need to make sure that the people that you're bringing around are doers and are closers, because there's 2 types of people. There's people that say, hey, I'll help you no matter what. There's people that say, hey, that's not really my role, right?
Totally.
Right? There's 2 kinds of people. And so you want to make sure that the team that you build internally are people that are problem solvers, not people that bring up problems. Okay. There's going to be problems in logistics from A to Z.
Oh, yeah.
But it's that optimism. And that's why you and your team were successful, because through the problems, what'd you do? You communicated with the client. You never disappeared when there's problems. And I think that's very big in team selling, and we'll get into that. You had somebody on the last podcast, Sherman Barnes over of Bennett Motor. He said something super smart. He said, listen, I sell truckload, but I'm a flatbed company. Stick to what your core competency is. I couldn't agree with that anymore. Don't go and sell something that your company doesn't specialize in. Echo Global, we're North America. So I'm not going to go and sell international against somebody that competes against international. That's not really giving Echo's best foot. So focus on your core areas. The people that you've had on these podcasts are so smart, and all of them are indifferent. You know, the other person was Abby Heffenbrettel, and she was over on lean staffing. Lean staffing is one of my favorite people, because it's all, you know, she mentioned something about building relationships and having trust. And overall, it's all about sticking to what you're good at and being trustworthy and genuine. At the end of the day.
You know, it's interesting. I took a lot of notes on those things because there's a lot to unpack. But one thing that's really cool is the concept of not having to know all the answers, 100%. But knowing where to go get them. And so I think sometimes if you're in a large organization and you're new, things can be overwhelming. You're like, shoot, I don't want to look like I don't know what's going on. And there are so many resources. So how do you get salespeople, whether they're new or experienced, to feel comfortable bringing in those resources, or to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, hand up, you know, I'm working on this opportunity. It's a little bit outside of my expertise, and I need somebody that knows how to do it.
It's a great question. You know, the first thing a sales rep needs to do is check their ego. No one expects you to come in and know everything, right? It's just, no one expects that. But the expectation is that if you don't know something, ask for help. If you work in any organization, big, small, 5-person, 5,000 person, you're going to have people that are going to offer help. But what the person that's asking for help needs to know is that you're in a circle of trust. There's no judgment here, right? What are people scared of when they join a big company? Oh God, I'm going to ask something stupid. Friend, you've been in logistics just like me. There's no dumb questions, because we all, just like the enterprise sales fleet manager said, like, we all joined logistics and didn't know anything, right?
Nothing.
The shame is on people that don't know something and don't speak up. And so to be in sales and freight, Will, you know, you have to be somebody that's comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
If you are not okay or willing to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I don't know something. I heard you do. Would you mind giving me 30 minutes of your time and maybe just teach me? You know, and when you ask somebody to give them your time, or they're giving you their time, you have to be respectful. I cannot tell you how many times I've given people my time and they're late to the meeting. They don't follow up. My job is not I'm not a trainee. I'm not a trainer. I purely am just like you. I was mentored, so I like to mentor, but my job is not to follow up, right? So that's the thing that I would say is, if you're going to ask for help for somebody, odds are they have a bigger book than you if they're an SME and you're new. You got to be respectful of their time.
I like it, man. Another thing that you mentioned is that attitude comes first. and that dropping the ego at the door is really important. I've worked with some very high powered sales professionals. Sometimes they got the biggest egos in the world, and it's not always the easiest to walk in and be collaborative. But the ones that are collaborative typically succeed at a much higher clip. So how do you, I guess, embody that, not have an attitude, not have an ego, and be there with the whole group to go and be successful?
It really stems from like the first 5 years I sold me. I'll be here, I'll do this. But when you realize, even if you're the best person, you have a limit, right? You have a limit. At a certain point, your ego only goes so far, and then you're going to choke on your ego because you said you're the best and you jumbled, you messed up something. You need to know that you are part of a chain. You are part of a team. Echo is not just Ben, right? It's behind. The sales rep's job, going back to your last question, is not to land the deal. Sales rep's job is to bring opportunities to the funnel, qualify them, and land them. How do you land them is up to the organization. But in my opinion, my job is identifying opportunities, qualifying it, bringing it in internally, assembling a team, and then presenting to the client externally a final solution. Nowhere in there is it me doing all the work, right? A lot of new reps think it's all on them. It's not. And so going back to that ego, when you realize that it's a we, not an I, and you realize that even if you're the best sales rep in the world, if you remove me from the picture, Echo is still, whoever you work with, they're still a good company. And odds are the client will still ship with them even if you don't exist.
You know what? They ain't going nowhere. That phrase going to keep moving. It's going to keep moving.
As long as somebody services them, like, it was really humbling for me. There was a top rep. It was before COVID. This is where sliding doors is the bad side. Rep was making good money. He wanted to leave. He thought he was the one bringing all the business. So he left. He went to a startup. He to this day is unemployed. Because when you realize it's just like athletics, you know you're an athlete. I wasn't, but I watch sports. When you're part of a system and it works, you're a really good player in that system. But when you go somewhere else and you've trained yourself unknowingly to be good at that system, now you're somewhere else. Now you're making assumptions that, system A is like system B, but it's complete. Everyone has a different kind of specialty.
Totally.
It's good at Echo, isn't good at Molo, isn't good at CH, different stuff. And so just like you said, if you have an ego, you're going to reach a point, a plateau, where the people that don't have an ego are going to say, bye. We're working together and we're jumping up on modes. Because with ego is, if I don't know something, that's part of my ego. I'm not going to be confident about that, right? But if I don't know something, I'm bringing in an SME and I'm going in with the same ego of, I don't know, but I'm going to lead and we're going to find out, right? Totally. So that's the difference. You can still have an ego. There's a difference between having an ego and being confident.
Absolutely.
Right? Huge difference.
Man, I've said this a ton, and it happens in calls that we have today. And the response is, hey, I don't know, but I will find out for you. And I've never had a client in any sales role I've ever had respond to go, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I can't believe you don't know. But I've had a lot of people go, man, respect. Okay, let me know when you figure that out and we'll follow up from that point. And you gained, it's easy. So let's recap a couple things here. Please. Just to kind of put a bow on this. I took a couple of notes. So you mentioned team selling is a lot about the attitude. So making sure that you've got a collaborative nature. If you don't know something, find somebody internally that knows what you don't. And everyone on the team is part of it, right? It could be legal, accounting, account management, whatever it might be.
LC, the tracker, doesn't matter. If they're touching your business, they're on the team.
Yeah, totally. Bring in problem solvers, check your ego. And even if you're the best, you have a limit. So make sure that you're leveraging your team to be as successful as you can be.
That's internally 100%. Let's talk about externally.
Yeah.
Right. When I'm talking to the client, how do you team sell? Because when I say team selling, when I'm building programs, there's so many different kinds of 3PLs, brokers, whomever. There's people that just live on spot freight. I have spot freight, but it's almost contractual because it comes regularly. But by definition, it's spot freight. I try to build sustainable programs. What does that mean? And scalable as well, because I've lived the lives of, okay, it's a spot client and you got 30 loads 1 month, and then 1 month you have 3, right? If you're passively managing an account, someone like me is going to come in and just kick you out. Because I'm actively going, okay, you have 5 DCs. Are you shipping this? Are you doing that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Our job, and I made a LinkedIn post about this externally to the client, is to bring options.
Yep.
It's not to dictate the options. It's to bring the options to the client as far-fetched as they are, because that's what we're brought for. It's, hey, I brought you on so that you can come with out-of-the-box solutions. I need storage trailers. I need lift, whatever. That's why I brought you on. And so externally, the goal is to find pain points. You have to have a client. Team selling only works if the team talk. And the team in this case, now I'm going external. Now it's the client. They have to be a team player too. A lot of sales reps don't take into account. If the client does not talk to me, the deal's done. There's no way I can provide value.
Yeah,
right?
It's hard.
The analogy that I can give you is if I go to a chiropractor and I say my back hurts, go do something. The chiro might do some things and it might work. If it doesn't work, I'm going to leave a bad review. I'm going to say that guy sucks. But if I say, hey, I've been working in an office environment. Every time I lift my right hand, I have, damage of the shoulder, what have you. He'll do something way more targeted to there. And so the direct translation is a lot of times clients say, I need better rates. But they're not telling you what we need to do to get better rates. It's not, I need better rates in my grocery in the Northeast because they're ordering minimums and the freight cost is just like the PO cost. What do I do? Right? It's getting granular in the issue. So you have to find out the client's pain points, but not just that. What are your goals? Right? You'll hear people say, you need to find out their KPIs. Okay, key performance indicators. Part of that is like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
What is your identity? Because it kind of goes into relationship building, which we'll talk in the future, but you'll hear me say this a lot. I don't chase verticals, I chase people. I don't care if you ship hazmat stuff. If you are somebody that's willing to give me as many details as I need, you're willing to jump on calls with SMEs with me, you're willing to really process map your life, your day-to-day, I will come up with a solution. But if you are somebody that's just dry beverage going to even my market, Midwest, great, you're not telling me your true pain points, I'm not going to bring you value that you think I can bring. And so you have to find clients that understand what you're building, right? That's the biggest thing in qualification. What kind of partnership do you want? Are you somebody that just wants to work every day and quote 5 people and whoever's the cheapest, that wins? Are you trying to build something? I tell a lot of prospects that my biggest clients have strategic partners. They'll have me doing something that I'm good at. They'll have a regional person that's good at that, right? Everyone works in unison. And a lot of the times on LinkedIn, you hear just everyone's talking smack. They're talking smack about LTL carriers, truckload carriers, brokers. Imagine if we were all transparent and treated everyone like a client, right? I'll get into the carrier next, but the client is just a piece of the deal. So many times we neglect either the carrier or our internal team, and it's like, the client's everything. The client's just a piece of the deal. And in team selling, a lot of what I do is hypotheticals, right? So when they tell me what they're trying to accomplish, I'll say, okay, if we did X, what would your reaction be? If I did Y and I followed through with that, would that solve the problem? It's coming up with hypotheticals before you put your foot down as an actual, because what if that's not what they want? Okay, no, that was just an idea, right? You know what I mean? When you come down with the one option, here's what we got. What if that's not what they want, right? Team selling is done. And so again, it's to bring options. When it comes externally and you have the client's pain points and you know what they're trying to accomplish. And you know what? It goes back to like detail. Detail's so big. Taking notes when it's team selling, when your role as the team is not just the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, you're also the assistant that takes the notes, because no one cares about your business more than you. No one.
Totally.
And so I take the notes for all my meetings and I send them internally. And I send it to the client too, because I want the client to know that when you're talking to me, don't worry about notes. I'll take the notes. You just be immersed in this call, right? Now, great. I've aligned internal. I've aligned with the client on what the needs are. Now, guess what? I need to get a carrier. I don't hide anything. I tell the carrier, here's the price I need to be at. Here's the profit I'm trying to do. If you're cool with it, on board. If you're not, next one. I try to assemble a mutually beneficial carrier, shipper, and me. All of us are winning. That's the true definition of mutually beneficial programs, is where everyone is winning. There's been COVID, right? Rates have been gone up and down. What if I told you I've had a drop trailer program at a shipper for 6 years and the rate hasn't changed once? And the rate has been market competitive on average, right? Because market goes up and down, but it's been a competitive rate. It's with an asset. It's a drop trailer every 7-8 days. 2, and it works for the carrier. It works for the shipper. It works for me. No one's changed anything, right? Beautiful. You can get to these places as long as everyone knows what everyone's doing. The problem with carriers and brokers is that there's bad actors. And so because of those bad actors, we all have to pay. We all have to pay. There's bad carriers that are impersonating. There's bad brokers that make promises they can't keep. Biggest complaint about a broker: you hounded me all day. I gave you an opportunity. You couldn't cover it. Right?
100%.
So it's sticking to your core competencies, which is like going back to internal. It's going back to what Sherman said. Don't make promises that you can't keep, because clients are the ones that remember it. And clients, going back to like that circle of logisticians, I, being in the network for 11 years, I get referrals now because of attrition. You burn one person at one company, you've burnt every company they go to.
It's a wrap. Yeah. This is all really great stuff, man. I appreciate you walking through how to make the sales approach mutually beneficial and how to use the team to go ahead and move opportunities forward. So really appreciate you joining us today on Sales Bytes, Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.